So now that we have our data read in from our two files, a location and an ADM file, I want to actually create a line graph. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Show Me to see what kinds of variables go into a line graph. And I'm going to mouse down here, and I notice here that it says for lines I need a date and then one or more measures. And if I look over here in my data set, I actually don't currently have a date, and I don't even really have a measure except for latitude and longitude. Those are two things that I need to fix before being able to create the visual. Let's tackle the date variable first, because this one's going to require a little bit more work, and that's because we have two different variables showing up that will be able to serve as our date. We have the year that shows up from our ADM file, and we also have the year that shows up within our location file. And if we're not careful about how we change the types, things will generally get confused and the visual will not work the way that we expected. So this is a case where we're actually going to go back and adjust our data set back in the data menu that we saw before. So this is where in my panel here on the left, I can see that I have my data that's marked as location plus. It's multiple connections because I'm connecting to multiple files. And I'm going to right click on that, and I'm actually going to go to Edit Data Source. And when I go back here, I'll see the same menu that I did before that shows my original data sources. And what I want to do here is look and change the data types for each of my years. And notice here I have a pound sign on top of my year in my ADM file and a pound sign on top of year in my location data. And I'm going to start here with my location data, and I'm going to click on this pound sign. And I want to change it to a date. So I just click on date. That's going to change this right here. And the data does not actually reappear. And that's because I have an error and I have two different types. So it's not going to read that I'm linking on years anymore because I have a date here and a number here. So if I change one to a date, I need to change the other to a date. And so I'm going to click on here, change this to a date. You may get an error message initially here. In this case, I did not. But if you do, just go ahead and click cancel on that, and it should go ahead and refresh to show you dates here. So if you notice here, this January 1st, 2006 date really just gives us an indication that Tableau is required to have all of the fields within the date filled. So it's going to have a default month and a default day that it's going to associate with our year. When we get into our visualization, though, we'll be able to display just the year on our graph and be able to take away the month and the day piece. So now that this is in place for both, we can go back to our sheet and actually have the option of doing a line graph. So when I click on Sheet here, I notice now I have year in here as a date field. And the last thing I need to do is to get a measure. And our measures are currently empty except for latitude and longitude, and we are not creating a map right now. What we want is this average student number from our ADM file. And it's very easy to get that to show up in the measures. Simply right click or click on this little arrow to the side and click on Convert to Measure. Now that's going to drop from the dimensions down to the measures, and we can utilize that as a measure. Finally, we can create our line graph by selecting average student number, Control or Shift, and then click. We have both of those selected at once. Go up to Show Me, and be able to select our line graph, which is going to look just like this. In our next video, we're going to take a look at adding some additional features to our line graph.